Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to day 2 of the WHC Conservation Conference. I'm Monica Keller, Chief Marketing Officer of WHC. Thank you so much for joining us today, and in case you missed any of our sessions from day 1, you can view them in the event app just as you accessed this session. I also want to remind everyone to browse around the event app and visit the Sponsor Hub, WHC Services and Community section, and feel free to post and like things on the activity stream. I am so pleased to introduce our keynote speaker today. This session is going to be both beautiful and inspiring, and I know that you're going to enjoy it. Tina Claffey is an award-winning nature photographer and author of the book Tapestry of Light, Ireland's Bogs and Wetlands as Never Seen Before. Her observations and unique perspective of the flora and fauna of the unspoilt raised bogs and wet woodlands of the Irish Midlands are celebrated in her work. Tina has exhibited in New York, San Francisco, Botswana, Zambia, and throughout Ireland, and she has been honored with several prestigious awards, including the Fine Art Photography Awards, Big Picture, and Close-Up Photographer of the Year. I will be popping in and out of Tina's presentation with audience questions, so please feel free to enter your questions in the questions box to your right as soon as you think of them. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Tina Claffey.
Thank you so much, Monica. It really is a pleasure to be here. Hello to everybody in the team of the Wildlife Habitat Council. Thank you to Margaret O'Gorman. Thank you to you, Monica, and all of the team for inviting me to be part of this wonderful conference. So I'm just going to share my screen now, and I'm delighted to take you on a little journey through our magical bogs in Ireland and reveal all the little treasures that are to be found in this unique wilderness. So it really starts like this. I went for a walk in my local bogland with a local botanist here in the Midlands. I'm based in the Midlands of Ireland, and it really kick-started my fascination with the bog wilderness. I had always thought of bogs and wetlands as barren wastelands, but I really couldn't have been more wrong. While walking with him, he handed me a magnifying eyeglass and encouraged me to look closely at the mosses and lichens and the tiny creatures he was scooping up for me. And it was amazing for me to realize that I was in fact walking on a living, breathing carpet of ancient life forms. So inspired to document the wonders that I had viewed through the magnifier, I invested in a macro lens, which allows me to photograph the flora and fauna up close, revealing really what the eye can't see, and to reveal the true wonders of this ancient wilderness. Much of the Midlands of Ireland is covered in raised bog, really a mosaic of habitats, both pristine and altered by us post-extraction that have been given back to nature. And as I've discovered over the last 10 years of exploring, is that nature really finds its way to thrive when given a chance. So I'm going to start with the flora, and all of the flora survive in this unique environment. So I'm going to start off with sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is the most extensive plant on the bog and is known as the bog builder. Without sphagnum moss, we wouldn't have any bogs. They form a living, luxurious wet carpet holding up to 20 times their own weight in water and host all of the larger plants of the bog that grow on the sphagnum. There's so many species of sphagnum. These ones look to me like a beautiful bouquet within this life-giving carpet. So this is marsh marigold, and marsh marigold is the first flower to appear in the spring and lets us know that the bog is waking up from its winter slumber. A flower of beauty and of huge importance as it supplies much needed nectar for the emerging insects. And this is a tiny spore emerging from its mossy bed. And as it is for most of my photographs, I'm lying flat on the ground to capture this. This little spore couldn't be seen by the naked eye. So the macro lens really allows me to capture these miniature otherworldly scenes that coexist with us. And the wet environment of the bog is perfect conditions for fungi. And this one is a very unique one. This is the scarlet elfcup, a wondrous orb of fungi deep in the wet woodlands. I think the scarlet elfcup, it's a very apt name, and it's such a joy to find this scarlet wonder at the foot of hazel trees in the wet woodland. The bog wakes up, so too does the bracken fern, and it seems to stretch its limbs, waking from a long sleep. Unfurling bracken ferns are so wonderful to photograph right through the seasons as they form the waking up bracken fern. And this is horsetail, and a horsetail is an amazing vascular plant that it really is a living fossil. Its giant ancestors date back to the time of the dinosaurs, and it's hard to believe that they date back 100 million years ago. This beauty emerges from the bog pool just like a rocket, towering over the beautiful and very aptly named bog beacon fungi as the sun illuminates its yellow tips. And this is another horsetail species that emerges in the drier esker areas of our bogs. Its spectacular hexagonal spore head really transports me to another world when viewed through the lens. And this looks like a portal. This is cat's ear. It's a little wildflower that grows in the esker area bog. I'm fascinated at its beauty as it's on the cusp of blooming here. Its red sepals protect the flower before it blooms and reveal the yellow bloom within. But to me, it looked like a portal to another dimension. And one would hardly associate orchids with peatlands, but we have many species of orchids. And this particular orchid, it really needs to be seen to be believed. It's the bee orchid, whose flower resembles a bee to attract pollinators. Really an incredible wonder of nature when viewed through the lens. And this is Lady Smock, so named in the olden days for its resemblance to a milkmaid's smock, or her outer garment to protect her clothing. It's also known as the cuckoo flower, as they come into bloom when the cuckoo starts to call. It's a very important food plant for the orange-tipped butterfly, which you'll see later. And in folklore, it was said to be sacred to the fairies and was thought to be unlucky to be brought indoors. And this little beauty is bogbean, which is in bloom right now on the bog. Its beautiful starry white hairy flowers bloom above the water on tall stems. And this is bog asphodel. And the arrival of the beautiful bog asphodel lets us know that summer has truly arrived. It's such a beauty with its yellow furry anthers. But I really believe that this flower is like a chameleon. It changes form through the seasons, completely changing by the autumn to a deep orange. So it's at its most beautiful, though, I think, in the summer. And this is marsh cinquefoil. And to me, marsh cinquefoil is our bog rose. It stands so regally in the bog pools, and it's a true beauty and a wonderful source of nectar for our insects. And this is the sundew. This is the round-leaved sundew. The sundew really would be my favorite plant on the bog. It's a stunning example of how many species have adapted to survive in the sterile conditions on the bog. This beauty is a deadly carnivore. Insects are attracted to its sweet, sticky tentacles, and once they land on it, they're doomed. The tentacles close over the insect, just like a fly trap, and it's digested. And the sundew gets nutrients from it, from the insect, nitrogen, which it lacks in the bog. So it really is an incredible plant. And I could do a presentation just on sundews because of their beauty. This is another round-leaf sundew, nestled just on really tiny. I can't emphasize how tiny they are. Really, really small. And this is another one. I call this one menacing crown, because the crown that you see there is a menacing one. Those tentacles deadly to insects. And this is the great sundew. It's another species of sundew. Works in the very same way as the roundleaf sundew, but it has long leaves with tentacles out of it. And I was actually photographing mosses this particular day, and I turned my lens to be greeted by this great sundew. And I thought it was poised almost like a cobra ready to strike. So yeah, when the insect is trapped in this one, it rolls up just like flypaper. This is cross-leaved heath, which is a type of head that flowers in midsummer and attracts many nectar-loving insects. But I was particularly drawn to the back of this flower and its magnificent structure, covered in dew, supporting its bell-shaped flower. And this is bog cotton, and bog cotton is such an iconic plant, and it's what we all associate with the bog. They grow in the bog pools and amongst sphagnum mosses, and their stems are filled with air channels, which allows the plant to breathe underwater, just like snorkeling. This beauty was bobbing and swaying in the evening breeze in the last of the summer sun. And this is strife, such a regal beauty, stands tall and proud, its purple tower, such a feast for the senses in the setting sun. And this is what I call nature's pearls. It was taken on a foggy morning, and foggy mornings are magical out in the bog. The fog reveals all the hiding places and wonderful spider creations. This beautiful web creation looked to me like a pearl necklace. And one of the bog's many gifts is the wild cranberry, nestled here among wonderful sphagnum mosses. And then we come into early autumn. Now, early autumn really is one of the most magical and beautiful times to be in the bog, because the heather comes into bloom and it creates a sea of purple. It's so good for the soul to be out there. This is ling heather, which is our most common heather, and it's really beautiful when viewed up close. And this is bog asphodel, that yellow flower I showed you a little earlier. This is bog asphodel in its autumnal form. It transforms to this beautiful, deep orange fruiting form. And then as all of the flowers die back, coming into mid-autumn, this beauty explodes into bloom. This is devil's bit scabious, and it is a godsend to the insects that are still remaining, providing much needed nectar for them. So this one has exploded into full bloom, just like a firework. And the bog is also host to some amazing lichens, really otherworldly lichens. This is reindeer lichen, so called because of its antler-like tips. And to me, this lichen appeared like a wonderful ghostly tree nestled on the bog floor. Another beautiful lichen is the pixie cup, really aptly named lichen. Looks so mystical in the morning sun. I imagine that they were enchanted goblets belonging to otherworldly kings or queens. And this little one, this little species of lichen, I don't even know what species it is, but it could barely be seen by the naked eye. But what a treat when viewed through the macro lens. The morning dew had encapsulated the orange tip, creating this otherworldly orb of dew. This is green elfcup. It's really hard to believe that nature could produce such an incredible color as that of the green elfcup. It's neither green nor blue, but a combination of both. I found this in the early morning autumnal sunshine on rotted wood in the wet woodlands. And this is bracken fern, and this is bracken fern actually dying, but it turns from its beautiful green, lush green, to deep orange and gold in the autumn. But it really recedes in a blaze of glory. The sun is backlighting it here, so I just focused on the tips of the frond of the fern. And then when it dies, springs new life. The cycle of life continues. This dead bracken fern is hosting beautiful parasols of miniature fungi. And the bogs really, they're host, as I said, to some amazing lichen species, and this is no exception. This is devil's matchsticks, and it's a wonderful lichen with its scarlet tips. It's easy to imagine otherworldly landscapes when viewing this species through the macro lens. To me, it looked like a fabulous tree surrounded by a frosted landscape. And this little wonder, this little fungi was caught in heavy frost coming into winter, and the emerging little pine beside it was already beginning to thaw because the sun had come up. It was such a magical wintry scene that I was grateful to capture. And this one, this is sphagnum moss. As I explored the bog in midwinter, it was -4 degrees, and this tiny little sphagnum moss caught my eye. It was in ice, completely frozen in ice, and the sun was lighting up the ice in a shallow bog pool. And when I looked through the macro lens, I really felt as though I was transported to another universe. This frozen sphagnum was perfectly preserved in the ice, its feathery limbs outstretched as if in suspended animation, surrounded by a galaxy of tiny frozen oxygen bubbles. So that's my flow, and I'm open to any questions you may have. I will stop sharing my screen now. So I hope you can see me. Here we go. And I can see you, Monica.
Tina. That was beautiful, and I think everyone should start off their day by looking at nature photography. And just when I thought I had a favorite, I had a new favorite, but I think my favorite maybe could be the bee orchid, just because I was looking at that like, is there a bee there?
No.
So that was really beautiful.
Thank you. Even when you see that bee orchid, it's incredible because you can't believe it. You have to touch it to realize it's not a bee. You know, it's really quite incredible.
Yes, indeed. So we have a few questions. So one of the ones that I wanted to ask you was, because I know you a little bit, so I found your journey to macro photography really interesting and fascinating. So maybe you could share with our audience how you sort of got to this place and in your work.
Well, it's been kind of a long and windy road, to be honest. I never thought I'd be a photographer, first off. I went to art college and I thought I was going to be a painter. But part of being in art college, we did everything. We did from sculpture to printmaking, and we also did photography. And it was pre-digital. So we were handed a camera and we started developing our own film and then printing our own prints. So I was hooked immediately. I thought it was magic. And studying photography initially through art, I think it was a really positive and good thing because it taught me how to think outside the box a little and look at things differently. So after that, then I worked with a German photographer as an assistant, and he was an industrial and fashion photographer, predominantly fashion, really. So my technical skills were developed by him. I think I learned more from him. He was such a perfectionist. I learned more from him in a month than I think I did technical wise in college, and I thank him for that. But one of the jobs I did with him was to go to Kenya to photograph wedding dresses on safari. How bizarre is that? So that was that opened another door for me because I fell in love. I was only there for 2 weeks and I fell in love with the smells, the atmosphere, the people. And when I got back to Ireland, I was totally convinced I needed to get back to Africa. I didn't care where, really. I just wanted to get back. And then I read an article one day about this guy who had won the Bachelor of the Year in Ireland here. And he was based in Botswana. He's an Irish guy based in Botswana. So I thought it'd be a great idea to contact him, that maybe he'd have connections that could link me up with work there or something. So I contacted him, and he said he'd keep me in mind and he'd let people know. And then he emailed me out of the blue about 4 months later and asked me was I still keen. So I jumped at the chance, and I jumped at the chance because what he needed was an assistant to document what he was doing, and he was doing flamingo research. So I left my 9-to-5 job as a photographer's assistant to go to Botswana in Southern Africa, and I was based at the Makadikati salt pans, and I was sleeping in a tree. I was immersed in the wilderness. My job was to fly with him in a microlight over the birds, over the flamingos, and document them from the air. Pre-digital again, it was all slide film. So it was just incredible. It was like a dream come true. I felt like I was in an Attenborough movie. So it was supposed to be for 3 months. It went on for a year, and then I came back to Ireland and I had an exhibition. of my work that I did over there, and then I got a one-way ticket back to Africa, back to Botswana where I was, because at that point I had made lots of contacts, and then I was thrown into the safari industry. So I was managing camps in really pristine wilderness locations, and I was immersed in nature really for 9 years, and my nature photography started there. I developed such a passion for nature photography. So when I came back to Ireland, oh my God, it was such a culture shock. I missed everything about Africa. I missed the wilderness. I missed the sounds at night, and I was really lost. So the discovery of this bog wilderness just on my doorstep, with its unique flora and fauna, it really helped me find myself again and inspire a passion for photographing Irish nature. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's an incredible story, and we would love to see your African work you did in Africa. So which brings up a question from someone: are any of your prints available for sale anywhere?
People can contact me through my website. I'll have all the details at the end if they'd like to purchase a print. That's no problem at all. Yeah, I'll give all the details of that at the end, but that's no problem if anyone would like a print.
Okay, great. We have a question from Rebecca. How did you learn to identify individual plant species?
I should have said from the start, like, I'm no botanist at all. I'm really an observer, and I have been learning as I go. I started off going to the bog for an hour, and then it would turn into 2 hours, and then it would turn into a day, and then I started exploring different bogs. And over time, I suppose I got used to what would be appearing, and I just come home and look it up in my book, and I learned that way. I looked it up online. I'd ask for identification help from botanists, and I've been learning as I go, really. So,
have there been any species that you found that you can't easily identify? Are some very rare that they're really not documented?
All the time. I'm still finding species I don't know, and I'm reaching out to the experts to help me. It's such an ancient wilderness. I mean, I feel like I've only scratched the surface in many ways, because there's species out there that are so unique to this wilderness that it's really quite I'm just feel honored to be able to go out there and document it, really.
So another question we have, how do you think nature photography can play a role in environmental conservation?
Oh, I think photography is such an incredible tool. I mean, a picture speaks every language. I mean, you don't need all of the. We all want to protect the environment. I mean, there's lots of negativity out there, but I think the purpose of my work really is to raise awareness and to showcase what we have, not what we've lost, what we still have and what we should preserve. So I think photography of the environment is really important. I reaches the masses. I think it can tell its own story.
The areas in which you go, in the bogs in Ireland, are they protected?
Some are, some aren't. Thankfully, there's a huge growing awareness here in Ireland about the value of our bogs. So more and more areas are becoming conserved, and more boardwalks are being built so that people can actually get out there themselves, because it's a very treacherous terrain. When I walk out there, I don't bring a tripod or anything, because I need my hands free. I wear my everything on my back, because it's really treacherous. I mean, it's 90% water if you think of it. You're like walking on islands of sphagnum. You have to be very careful of where you walk. But it's yeah, there's definitely more awareness out there, and people are really beginning to discover what we actually have out there.
So as one of the questions was kind of segue into this, as you've spent time in the bog over the years, have you noticed a change, whether positive or negative?
I think it can only be positive from what I've seen, and especially with the growing awareness now, people are more aware, and farmers that have bogs on their land are beginning to protect those areas. So I think it can only be positive. The only way is up, really, because a lot of our bogs were harvested. It was used as a fuel, because it's only now that it's beginning to realize how important our bogs are. As carbon sinks, you know, 33% of the world is covered in peatland, and it holds 30% of our carbon. So they're really a wonderful tool in the quest against climate change.
Yeah, and I think that sort of takes us back again to answering that question, like how can photography influence conservation? And I think that the work that you're doing in showcasing the bog and the beauty of the bog is important in the conservation of the bog, so people can actually see it and appreciate it. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really only when you get out there. I'd encourage everyone just to get out there, even if there's no bog near you where you are in the States or wherever you are, just to get out into nature is you know, there's nothing like just being out there. It's so good for your body and soul and everything else. So yeah, no, I'd encourage people to get out there.
So we do have a couple of questions about your equipment, and I just want to let everyone know that we will be getting to that. I know that that's a great interest, and we will get to that in the next portion of Tina's presentation. So here's a question. During your photography sessions in the bog, have you had any encounters with people researching bogs, such as those on display in the Irish National Museum?
I meet a lot of, there are certain bogs I go to where there are researchers out there, which is lovely to see, doing all sorts of mammal preservation kind of surveys. And I'm associated a lot with the raisebog.ie. If you look them up, they protect our about 12 key bogs in the area, and they have lots of researchers working for them as well in all sorts of areas. Yeah, there's a lot of interest now. There's a lot of interest being piqued about our bogs. You know, it's like we've opened a lovely bouquet of lots of wonders out there. So yeah, no, it's great to see such interest in the bog now.
That's wonderful. Okay, so we'll do one more question, and then we'll get to your next section of your presentation. So what first catches your attention, color, form, or structure, or something else that makes you want to stop and photograph a subject?
Well, the thing is with macro photography is it slows you down. You're instantly slowed down. I mean, I can stay for hours in a 3-meter square area, and sometimes I go and I want to photograph one particular subject, and especially with macro photography, you can turn your lens a tiny bit. It draws you in, and I'm like, oh, look at that, and then you turn it again and go, oh, look at that, and it draws you in further and further and deeper and deeper. It's almost like a meditation. So I'm always on my own in there. I find it better to be on my own in there. Early morning is lovely, late evening is lovely, but with macro photography you can photograph right through the day, really, because you can soften the light with diffusers and the like. So yeah, I don't really have I usually have some sort of idea of what I'm going to photograph when I go in there. I know what's coming out, so I'll have one idea of what, okay, I'll go in today and I'll focus on lichens, but I might come back out with 20 different species, you know, because you get drawn in by the macro lens. I'm hooked. I'm really addicted to it.
Well, we are too now. So I will leave you now to continue your presentation, and I'll be back with more questions.
Okay, great. Hope I can answer them for you, and I hope you enjoy my next section now. So I'm going to show screen again. So I hope you can see me there. So I'll just go out of this again. There we go. Okay. So we're on to the fauna now, and the fauna is it's so exciting as well. There are so many absolute wonders out there. So what we're going to start off, I'm going seasonal again, similar to the last presentation. So the first up is frog spawn. It's the first sign of life in the spring. So the sun was shining and lit a reed below the surface of this frog spawn, illuminating one cell of frog spawn. So as I looked through the macro lens, it really looked like an eye was staring straight back at me. To me, the eye of Mother Nature herself. So I call this one Nature's Eye. And these are tadpoles. Tadpoles huddled together at the edge of a bog pool, And I'm standing over them here, looking downwards, getting as close as I can with my lens. And each tadpole is unique, really, with its own beautiful markings. And these little ones I thought were tadpoles, but in fact are newts. It's quite common to find tadpoles, but really a treat to find newts in the bog. These are newt tadpoles swarming at the edge of the bog pool, rising all those bubbles in their wake. And in late spring, the plants and the branches can be adorned with this bubbly mass. It's called cuckoo spit, but it doesn't come from a cuckoo. It's created by a little insect called the froghopper when in its larval stage. The bubbles the larva creates protect it from predators and keep it at a constant temperature so it can develop safely. And this is our little architect in the bog. This little insect is the caddisfly. It's an aquatic larva. It has to develop in the water. And it builds this amazing structure from reeds, which houses its delicate, soft, aquatic body. So this incredible creation protects its body from predators as it develops, and its weight keeps it submerged. I mean, nature is amazing. This caddisfly has gained its wings, leaving its house behind. So it's really quite incredible to think that an insect has created this structure. This is a caddisfly, an adult. This particular one is a window-winged sedge, and I photographed this in Abbeyleix bog in County Laois. And I had it identified, and it turned out it was the first recorded species of this particular caddisfly in Ireland. So it just shows how important our bogs are. And while photographing mosses one day in a bog pool, I noticed something tiny just floating on top of the water, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I looked through the lens. Two tiny mating snails floating just under my nose, oblivious to my presence there. So again, the macro lens, it's just an amazing eye that sees what we can't see. And these amazing creatures are shield bugs. We have so many species in Ireland, but these are called hairy shield bugs. So the bog cotton was full of these. I was walking along and I noticed a lot of them on the plant, and they're all jostling and fighting with each other and knocking each other off the plant. And I was wondering what's going on. And then I realized that they were fighting for a mate. And these are the lucky ones. This is a couple I found. Such amazing insects. They're shielded backs, united in a flurry of bog cotton here. And really, like skunks, shield bugs can emit a really foul smell if threatened. But happily, all of my encounters with these little wonders have been odorless. And these are little tiny, I can't emphasize enough, tiny, tiny little eggs laid on a leaf by a bronze shield bug. The bronze shield bug lays bronze eggs. So these incredibly beautiful little capsules with their little caps on them, when the little shield bug is ready to emerge, the top pops open and it emerges. And they go through many instar phases, growth phases, before they reach adulthood. And this is a wondrous little egg of the orange tip butterfly. I showed you lady smock a little earlier, and this is the plant and the flower that it exclusively lays its egg on. Just an incredible little egg, little wondrous egg that you can barely see by the naked eye. And once it emerges, this tiny little caterpillar eats the egg that it has resided in and goes on to feed on the flowers. And once it's had its fill and it's ready, it'll transform into a chrysalis and emerge as an adult orange-tip butterfly. And this is a chrysalis. This is the chrysalis of a beautiful chrysalis of the marsh fritillary butterfly. And the marsh fritillary butterfly really has made an amazing recovery after being absent from the bogs for almost 20 years. But thanks to the conservation efforts of our bogs, they've made a huge comeback. This is marsh fritillary. This little one had freshly emerged. And because it was freshly emerged and drying its wings, it allowed me to photograph and appreciate its beauty up close. Look at those beautiful eyes, and it's just stunning coloring. And its wings, a beautiful tap. really like nature's embroidery. And this is another winged wonder. This is a damselfly, and damselfly are a joy to photograph. We have so many beautiful species of them. This is a female banded demoiselle. Her copper wings, just so beautiful, and her metallic green body. The male of this species is a deep metallic blue. And this is a micro moth, and it was so wonderful to follow this little one. And it's very tiny, tiny little moth, a day flying moth. In flight, I followed it, and it was just magical, really, to see him through the macro lens once he had landed. So tiny, but so regal. This, I imagine that possibly maybe he's a king in the winged world. His regal wings are like a cape, and his furry crown, and that scarlet red eye looking directly at me. And this is the dark tussock moth. The dark tussock is such a beauty with its wonderful hairy tussocks on its back. And they're so tolerant of me with my lens. Once I move slowly, they just continue on doing what they do. And this particular one was feasting on bog cotton, and I was fascinated with its gorgeous little feet as it moved up and down the stalk of the plant. This one, this knotgrass moth caterpillar, was heavily laden with morning dew. It was so heavily laden it could hardly move, but it's just magical when I find scenes like this. I mean, I just thank them all. I thank all of the insects because it's really a wonder to find these little things. This is an emperor moth caterpillar. It feasts on heather and hawthorn, and once it's ready to pupate, it spins an amazing golden cocoon, a silk cocoon, and it hibernates for 9 months, emerging in the following year in mid-spring. And this one had just emerged, and when they emerge, they are just magnificent. I mean, truly magnificent. Its wings have incredible eye markings, usually to deter predators. And I was photographing this one when she was joined by a much smaller male. I really couldn't believe my luck. Because newly emerged females release a unique chemical signature like a pheromone, and it's irresistible to males, which can detect them from kilometers away. So I actually couldn't believe my luck that it happened right in front of me as I was photographing her. So she's the big one and he's the little one underneath. I felt so privileged to be able to document it. And I mean, the sole purpose of the male emperor moth, once it's emerged from its cocoon, is to find a mate and reproduce. And the sole aim of the female is to continue the cycle of life. So these are the eggs of the emperor moth. Each one so precious. Her life's work is done, and she goes to spend the rest of her days exploring the bog. So onto our spider. This is the raft spider. This is our largest spider in Ireland, and it's an amazing hunter. It doesn't spin webs to capture its prey. It's semi-aquatic, hunting on the water and under the water and on solid ground as well. It's in hunting mode here. As soon as an insect lands on the water, the surface tension changes, and it instinctively then goes for the kill. Really amazing, amazing hunters. And this is a female with her egg sac. What she's carrying underneath her, that amazing cargo she's carrying, is an egg sac. So she carries this egg sac for up to 3 weeks, and she dips them in the bog pools if she feels they're drying out. And once she finds a safe spot for them, she lays down the egg sac, builds a small web around them, and guards them until they emerge. So she was so tolerant again of me taking this photo. You can see she's keeping a close eye on me, but I moved very slowly, and again I thanked her for allowing me to photograph her. And this is a wolf spider, which can easily be mistaken for a raft spider. They also hunt on the water and under the water, and you can gauge the size of this one because it has just killed a dragonfly. I missed the event, but I did get to capture it on the water, standing proudly over the wing that is left of the dragonfly. And this little grasshopper was very curious as I was photographing the surrounding flora. I find that when I slow down to the hum of life in the bog, it's like I'm accepted in there. I thanked this little one as well. And once I thanked it after taking its photograph, it hopped off on its merry way. And this is a little 7-spot ladybird, and it was a really drizzly, kind of miserable day. I was out there, so it was huddled into a wild carrot plant on a really drizzly day. And I just thought its scarlet back was such a lovely pop of colour. And this little day-flying moth was resting in the midday heat. It was unfazed by me approaching it. I popped up my diffuser to soften the harsh sunlight, and many say you mustn't photograph in the middle of the day, that the light is at its best early morning and late evening, and that's correct. It is at its best early morning and late evening. But with macro, you can soften the light using a diffuser and really take photos at any time of the day. This is an exoskeleton of a dragonfly. When a dragonfly nymph is ready to emerge, it climbs out from the bog pool and its outer skin hardens. And when it's ready, then the adult bursts out of this hard exoskeleton. You can see where it's burst out right at the shoulder level there. I had missed the actual event, of course. It's on my bucket list of things to capture, but I was mesmerized by the absolute anatomical perfection of the shell of this dragonfly. And this is a 4-spot chaser dragonfly. I actually rescued this dragonfly because it had got into difficulty in a bog pool and it was within reach. So I scooped him up and I placed him on the heather. And what he did then was he climbed up to the tallest perch and proceeded to dry and shake those wings of his to dry them. And in doing so, it allowed me to get up close to photograph him. And within minutes, he took to the sky again. And this is another shield bug. This is, I have to say, this particular shield bug took my breath away. It was early morning. Everything was covered in dew. It was on Devil's with scabious, on that beautiful purple flower that emerges when everything else dies in the autumn. And you can tell why it's called a shield bug, because literally their back is in the shape of a shield. So this birch shield bug, heavily covered in morning dew, it just appeared to be encrusted with ruby jewels as it fed on the flower. And it posed for me, I promise you, it stayed as still as anything. I took all sorts of angles and then I said thank you to it. And as soon as I said thank you, it went on its merry way. So it's really important to thank them all. This is a little hoverfly bee. You would think it's a bee, but it's actually a fly. It's on Devil's with scabious, posing so nicely for me on the flower. But it's, yeah, it looks like a bee, but it's actually a fly. I think it mimics a bee to deter predators. Now this is another shield bug. This amazing shield bug. Was so well camouflaged among the heather. The heather had died back, and it was pure luck that I spotted it. This is the spiked shield bug with its incredible shoulder spikes. And while most shield bugs feed on plants and fruit, this one is a predator. This one feasts on caterpillars and other insects. And he looks like he could have ancestors in the dinosaur era, and you know, maybe he does. The spikes are used in combat with other spiked shield bugs. So this is my book, Tapestry of Light, that was released in 2017. It was a great hit. It sold out completely. I have a poem at the side of it by John Sheehan of the Dubliners, which inspired the title, and I had poetry by John Sheehan throughout the book. It is sold out, but I can tell you with great excitement that I have a new book coming out in spring of 2022. So I'm very excited about that. So we're on to our lenses, and Monica, you can come in here if you want to. What I can do is just go through my, I can go through my equipment for you of what I use, and I'll just go ahead and do that. Maybe probably the best thing.
Sure, that's fine.
So, okay, great. So I have two cameras. I have a 5D Mark III. I use Canon equipment, and I have a 7D as a backup camera. But the key for me are the lenses. I mean, you can have the most expensive camera, but really the lenses are what you need to spend your money on. So my go-to lens, my favorite macro lens, is the 100mm L series macro lens. It's a fabulous lens. It doubles up as a wonderful portrait lens. It's so super sharp. I just love it. I love that lens. I also use the Canon MPE 65mm macro, which magnifies up to 5 times. And that is incredible for getting really, really detailed close-up shots. But it's really tricky. It's a completely manual lens. It's a dedicated macro lens. You can't use it for anything other than macro. And I think it's a lens that's supposed to be used in a studio, but I have it out in the middle of the bush in Ireland. But it's worth it. It's worth persevering with it, because you can get amazing results. Another lens I use is my telephoto lens, a lovely long lens. It's my 70 to 200mm lens, and it has an extender which makes it a 280mm lens. And that's lovely for capturing flora or fauna in the distance. Great lens. So they're the 3 lenses I will always have with me. These are my other 2 lenses then, which I use, but not so much. The 24 to 105 lens and the 16 to 35mm lens. My essential go-to piece of equipment to bring, especially with macro photography, is a pop-up diffuser. I have a pop-up diffuser that I attach to my bag. It pops up. It's about 1 meter wide when it's popped up. It's a circular disc diffuser that you can fold up. That's a really essential piece of equipment with macro, because I'm not using flash. I'm not using any lights. I'm using only natural light, available light. That's not to say I won't use it in the future, but for now I'm using only natural light. Very important as well is waterproof trousers and jacket. For the first few years, I used to get absolutely soaking wet, and God, yeah, no, I invested in good wet gear. So that's really important. I haven't put it in there, but because of my age, I don't know, I do wear knee pads as well, because if I'm on my knees a lot as well. So nice to have foamy knee pads to protect those knees. Other than that, that's about it on the equipment side. I don't use a tripod unless I'm taking a photo of like a sunset or something like that. I don't use it for my macro work because everything I'm photographing is on the ground. So I don't really need a tripod. I'm using my hand as a base, and I have a steady hand at this stage, so I can hold the camera quite still. And then I have all my social media links, tinaclaffey.com, and Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, are all through my website as well. If you go onto my website, you'll see a mailing list, and if you're interested in my future book, I will be posting all sorts of news and that, and my exhibitions and everything else through the mailing list. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay, great. Yes, and we will make sure to share your contact information for anyone who's interested in getting on your mailing list and buying prints. And I will just tell you, Tina, that I'm getting a lot of messages internally from WC staff as well as from the audience of how much everyone is appreciating and loving your work. So we're so happy that you could share it with us today. It's really incredible, and I have more favorites now. I think everyone is my favorite. So thank you so much. In speaking a little bit about the equipment, we have some questions and sort of how you achieve these photographs. Like, how close do you need to be? And you know, how long? I think you mentioned before, like sometimes you could just be in one place for an hour, but how do you take the diffuser and the reflector, and how do you sort of set yourself up? And if something moves, do you need to move with it, or you just kind of stay put?
Well, first of all, can I say you require a lot of patience with macro. It's taken me a while to get used to it, because you have to slow down your psyche, really. You have to slow down your mind to actually see, because if you don't slow down, these little things will pass you by. You won't see them. Sorry, Monica, now, do I need to stop sharing here, or are we okay?
I think you've stopped sharing already. Yeah, you're fine.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, so as I say, all of my macro images are handheld. I don't use a tripod as much of the flora and fauna is at ground level. So it requires a really steady hand. For all of them, I'm using available light. And for some of them, I need to focus stack. I'm not sure if you're aware of focus stacking, but to achieve full focus in one particular area, I need to take a series of photographs, especially when I'm not using flash or anything. So I take a series of photographs, moving from focus point to focus point, moving a little bit, taking a photo, moving a little bit, taking a photo, up to like 25 shots in one, up to 25 shots at a time. And then when I get home, I sandwich them together on Photoshop, and then I achieve full focus of a specific area. So I'm kind of new to it. I've only started doing that, not with all my photographs, but for some particular species, I need to do that. And especially if it's hard to do with insects, because an insect is going to move, but you can do it with flora, because the plant's not going to go anywhere and it's so tiny. Yeah, wind is a massive enemy. I don't really go out there and take macro photographs if it's particularly windy, because wind will move any flora or fauna. It'll move insects. It's a bit of a nightmare because it's very hard to find focus. A nice still day is ideal. So it's really patience. To answer your question, it's really just taking time to slow down. Can't emphasize it enough. Actually, a really good exercise for me, I found. I remember when I started taking photographs, I wanted to capture everything that the botanist had shown me. And I went out with my camera and I had the macro lens, and I was like, where is this now? And where is that? And I couldn't find anything. And it was only when I actually brought sandwiches that day, and I sat down to have my sandwich. And it was only when I was eating my sandwich that I noticed something moving here. And then I noticed a raft spider just there. And I turned around, and I only began to notice things when I had stopped. So I think that's the key thing first, is to stop. Just stop and look exactly what you're doing, you know. And when I was in Africa, I was taught how to observe. I was taught how to really look, not just using the eye, but using your senses, to stop where you are. Out there, it was all about survival. You had to stop if there was. You had to look at the tracks at your feet. You had to listen to sounds, warning calls that would alert you that there was a predator nearby. So it was when I got back. When I got back to Ireland and I started really exploring, that all of that knowledge started to come back to me. And I realized, like, I have to do that same thing again. I have to stop and wait and really, really look and see. But the macro lens takes you on a journey. You can focus on something and it'll take you somewhere else if you move the lens. Even a tiny bit, you're going to see something else and see something else. And it's like going into a crazy little portal, really.
So how often do you go out? How often do you go out for a session, and then how long are you typically out there?
It really depends. I could go out for, I suppose the shortest time I go out there would be 2 to 3 hours. I love to go out for the full day. The full day is ideal. I try to go out about twice a week, because I like to keep tabs on the season. On where it's going and what's emerging, and I mean, I'm always finding new things. It's not like I'm seeing the same things over and over. There's new things emerging all the time. It still excites me to go out there. So yeah, it's just an amazing subject matter out there, because it still feels mysterious out there. I'm drawn to bog pools. I'm drawn to these sphagnum mosses. They're all so mysterious and amazing and unique, that I just love it, you know.
Well, we love it too, so thank you. So we have a question about visiting Ireland. The Midlands and the bogs are not typically on the tourist calendar or schedule. So if someone were to take a venture out to the bogs, which one bog would you recommend as good for a visit?
Okay, so there's quite a few. One of my favorite bogs to visit is in County Laois, which is about 40 kilometers from me, and it's called Abbey Leaks Bog. That's a lovely bog because it's a bog that the community took back over. They took over it and they built an amazing boardwalk, and it goes through many different habitats, from wet woodland to open bog, and that's a really beautiful one to go to. Lochborough Parklands is another example of a bog that was harvested and damaged by us, but it was given back to nature. It's a real success story. It's never going to be what it was again, but it has changed and evolved to something new now, because nature has taken hold kind of in a different direction there, and it has brought a lot of people there. You meet crowds there now. There's a lot of people visiting that place. There's Girly Bog, there's Scohaboy Bog. There's many bogs, many small bogs, and there's lots of bogs now, as I said, that the community and the Irish people have fallen in love with again. And there are boardwalks being built, and people can go and visit these wonderful bogs and experience them for themselves, where they would have been really inaccessible before. But with this boardwalk, you can actually walk out on the bog without fear of drowning or falling into a bog pool.
Yes, because everyone's not going to have their waterproof gear like you do. So I think on my next trip to Ireland, I will definitely want to check that out, thanks to your work. So this is maybe a hard question, but do you have a favorite photograph you've taken?
One of my favorite ones would be that frozen sphagnum. It was the last one on the flora presentation. It was the sphagnum moss that was frozen in ice. It took my breath away when I looked through the lens at it. I actually couldn't believe its beauty, because it was so, you would walk by it without a second glance, and it was only when I looked through the lens to see it in its beauty, like frozen perfectly in time. That took my breath away. I also love that birch shield bug that morning, that autumnal morning, that was on the devil's bit scabious, on that purple flower. That was a real special one. And my most recent one I love is that emperor moth, the mating one with the male. I really felt so privileged to be there for that. I mean, such an incredible moth, but for a male to arrive while I was taking the photograph was beyond my wildest dreams, really. So,
well, that's where your patience pays off. So along the same lines, do you have a favorite fauna species or flora species that you enjoy photographing?
My favorite flora species would be the sundew. Not just for its beauty, but for how it's adapted to survive out there. It's just the clever little plant, that one. They're just amazing little fly traps, and they're so tempting. I mean, if I was an insect, I'd be drawn straight to it. It's so beautiful, and I never tire of photographing them. They're so stunning. So yeah, that would be my favorite. And the fauna is a tough one. One of my favorites would be the raft spider. I've spent hours watching raft spiders hunting. I'm out there sometimes, and it feels like I'm in my own little Attenborough world, watching a hunt and a kill right before my eyes on a bog pool with the raft spider. I've actually had a raft spider before use my bag as a hide, and it was hiding behind the straps, and it was zooming out and catching insects and running back. So I was like, you know, I just could have brought him home, but I wouldn't, obviously. But I love them. I love raft spiders. Yeah, there's so many species of fauna. I mean, it's really hard to narrow it down. I love all the shield bugs. I love them all.
So I wish we had more time, but we're out of time. So I just want to thank you so much, Tina, for sharing your art and your stories with us. They're incredible. I know we all can't wait for your next book. I'm sure that will sell out too. So everyone get on her list so you can get a book. Reminder, tinaclaffey.com. If you're interested in purchasing a print, you can contact Tina. And now we hope to see everyone again in 30 minutes at 10:30 Eastern Time for our next session with Business for Nature, CRH, and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, moderated by Margaret O'Gorman. Thank you, Tina.
So welcome. Thank you, Monica. And thank you all at the Habitat Council. Thank you.